The rain poured heavily that night in Lagos. It was the kind of rain that covered the whole city, making everything dark and hard to see. Thunder roared and lightning flashed in the sky. The wind blew loudly, shaking the roofs and rattling the windows. People stayed inside, afraid not only of the rain, but also of something else, something hiding in the shadows. In a small, dark room by the busy Lagos market lived a man named Oladele. Oladele was a big, strong man. He was tall, fat, and his body was broad. But it wasn't just his size that made people notice him. It was the cold, angry look in his eyes. This look showed how unhappy he was inside. Oladele had always felt different from others, and he hated them because of it. He thought everyone judged him or laughed at him because of his weight. Even when they said nothing, he felt that every smile, every laugh he had was making fun of him. And as the years went by, his anger grew and grew, filling his heart with darkness. On stormy nights, when the rain was very heavy and drowned out the sound of the city, Oladele felt a strange kind of calm. For him, the rain was a cover, hiding him from everyone. When the storm was loud, he could move around unnoticed, doing whatever he wanted without anyone knowing. People in Lagos had started talking about him. They didn't know his name, but called him the shadow in the rain. They warned each other, saying, "Don't go out on stormy nights, or the shadow will get you." They told their children, friends, and neighbors to stay inside. Everyone believed that if you heard heavy footsteps during a rainstorm, you should run, hide, or pray. Oladele liked that people were afraid of him. It made him feel powerful. On this dark, rainy night, he looked for people who stayed outside too long. Those who didn't believe the stories, he would watch them from far away, waiting for the right moment, moving silently like a hunter. His previous victims were random strangers, who he felt represented society's judgment of him. During heavy rains, he would lure them into the shadows with cries for help, only to silence them forever. He left no traces, but whispers of people vanishing during rainy nights spread fear across Lagos, making rainstorms a time of dread. One night, the storm was especially fierce. The rain fell hard and the streets were empty, except for a few unlucky people caught in the downpour. Oladele was ready. He moved quietly through the alleys, feeling the cold rain on his face and clothes. The rain was his friend and his hiding place. Then he saw her, a young woman struggling with a small umbrella, trying to cross the street quickly. She looked scared, her steps hurried. Oladele could tell she was afraid, alone, and perfect for him to follow. Slowly, he began to follow her, staying in the shadows, his footsteps hidden by the sound of the rain. The woman looked around, sensing that someone might be watching her. She began to walk faster, glancing at the darkened windows and closed doors, hoping for someone to help. But Oladele was patient. He knew he had nowhere to go and no one to turn to. He followed her through the winding streets, watching as she became more frightened. Finally, she reached a narrow alley, hoping it would lead her somewhere safe. But Oladele knew the city well. He blocked her path, his tall figure standing in the faint light of a street lamp. The woman froze, her umbrella slipping from her hand. She looked up at him, her eyes widened with fear. Oladele smiled, a cold smile that made her even more scared. He reached out his hand, ready to pull her into the shadows. Then he looked at her closely. Then he said, "You laugh at me," his voice shaking. The young woman stepped back, confused and scared. "I don't know you," she said, trying to keep calm. But Oladele didn't believe her. She reminded him of someone, a girl from his school who used to bully him because of his weight. The memory of her laughter haunted him, and now, seeing this young woman, he felt all his anger rise again. She dropped her umbrella and knelt on the wet ground, tears mixed with the rain on her face as she pleaded, "Please, I'm not the person you think I am. I was bullied too for being too slim. I know how much it hurts." Her words made Oladele pause. For a moment, he remembered how much he had suffered, the jokes, the stares, the whispers. But the bitterness in his heart refused to leave. "I don't care," he said, stepping closer. Then something happened. A voice echoed through the rain, soft and faint, calling his name. "Oladele." He stopped, looking around. It was a voice from his past, familiar, comforting, but also painful. He froze as the faces of the people he had hurt appeared in his mind. One by one, they stared at him, their silent gazes filled with fear and sadness. Oladele's hands shook, and his chest felt heavy. He looked down at the young woman, still kneeling in the rain, and then he looked at his own reflection in a puddle. For the first time, he saw himself clearly, not as a victim, but as someone who has caused pain. Without saying a word, Oladele turned and walked away into the rain. His large figure faded into the darkness, leaving the woman alone. As the rain eased, the young woman stayed on the ground, shaking but alive. She would never forget the man who haunted rainy nights in Lagos, or the pain she saw in his eyes. The rain washed away the sound of his footsteps, and soon it was as if he was never there. From that night on, no one ever saw Oladele again, and Oladele was forever haunted by the voices and faces of the people he had hurt. He lived in fear and sadness. This story is a warning, a reminder to let go of anger and seek light even in the darkest storms. The shadows we carry can only disappear when we face the truth within ourselves.